the main takeaway that I had from this game is, and afterwards, like in the hours after and the announcements that have been made, the Lions just they just don't have the bodies this year to win the Super Bowl. So like I'm planting my flag on the Lions are not a Super Bowl contender this year. It hurts to say. They were probably the best team in the NFL, but at a point, this defense is just on fumes at this point. They lost two key guys this past weekend. They lost Carlton Davis. They lost McNeil, their defensive tackle, which Dan Campbell said that they're both going to be out for the remainder of the season. Lost Aiden Hutchinson, obviously. This defense is also already kind of teeter-tottering of being good and bad, probably like somewhere in the middle of that. And to continue to keep losing key guys absolutely hurts. And then the kind of the cherry on top is David Montgomery missing the rest of the season. And I know that they still have Jahmyr Gibbs, but losing David Montgomery is so important for them. And the run game is going to be important for the Lions going into the playoffs and playing deep into the season. And to lose a guy who's so important to that run game, like it's going to affect them a ton.
Yeah, it'll definitely affect them running the football. I think we both think that Jahmyr Gibbs is phenomenal, but like that 1-2 punch of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery was special stuff. But this game had nothing to do with the Lions on the offensive side of the football. I mean, they can run it up there with the best of them, and they still probably have, even with Montgomery down, top 5 offense in the NFL. But they're just so beat up on the defensive side of the football too. It's this almost feels like kind of what the Bills had to deal with last year, right? When they had to just try and battle through all of these injuries that they had on defense. And as good as you are on offense, there just gets to be a certain point where if you can't get a stop when you need to, you're not going to be able to win a football game. And especially with, I mean, I think the Eagles have been looking great on offense. You're going to need to get a stop against a team like that. You're going to need to get a stop against the Packers who are also looking really good on offense. Like those are two teams that can get a stop on defense, and I'm not really sure the Lions can do that at this point.
Yeah, and one thing that I always bring up when we talk about the Lions is Jared Goff proved me wrong this week. Like 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, looked really good. But we also have an example of when he does have to go superhero cape mode, throw the ball 100 times, and he throws 5 picks. So like we've seen both sides of the equation where we don't know what we're going to get from Jared Goff. And I think having to put more pressure on Jared Goff is not the recipe for success. That's the only problem I have with this Lions team is I just don't think Jared Goff is going to be the guy to get them over the hump. I thought with a very good cast of talent around him and a good defense that could be a possibility. But now as that starts to dwindle, the later and later we get into the season, I'm starting to think that that's going to be a big problem heading late into the playoffs. And honestly, if they don't get the first round bye, maybe even a potentially first round exit.
Yeah, I think that matchup just really depends, obviously. But if that'll be a tough first round if somehow they end up losing the 1 seed, which could happen at this point. If I were to tell you that Jared Goff went 38 for 59 for 494 yards and 5 touchdowns, I feel like 99% of people would say that no brainer, they won that football game. The thing that I've been noticing is that the Lions, it seems like whenever Jared Goff has a game like that's outstanding is when like the Lions tend to lose. Like his games when he's throwing for the most yards, it always feels like they're losing those games, and he's throwing 59 times a game. Like the most efficient, best version of the Lions are Jared Goff is throwing the ball 20 to 25 times. They're running the ball and they're getting stops on defense. And I just don't think that they're going to be able to do that, especially with Montgomery down, all the injuries they have to the defensive side of the football. Like they're going to have to battle against, I don't know what the current playoff standings look like and who they would end up playing if they were to be the 1 seed, but like the 1 seed is in serious jeopardy for them at this point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you play Chicago, you kind of got bailed out the last time you played them. That should have been a loss for them. You play them again at Chicago, then you play San Fran at San Fran. I mean, it's a week by week basis with San Fran on if they're good or not, and then you finish out the season with Minnesota at home, and Minnesota has been a tough team all season. So I'm right there with you. It's not an easy stretch by any stretch of the imagination. They could easily win or lose any of those games. And last thing before we move on to the next conversation is Dan Campbell. Like, love the guy, he's fiery, but like that decision where he thought it would be a good idea to do an onside kick down 10 with 12 minutes left was just flat the wrong decision. You didn't give your team an opportunity to actually win that football game. And I'm actually starting to worry a little bit about, as much as everybody loves him for how aggressive and some of the decisions that he makes, I'm also at the same time cautious about sometimes the decisions that he makes in a game. Like, really good example is when he played the Packers and Jared Goff fell down and he just happened to get that handoff off. That's another
on their own side of the field.
Yeah, on their own side of the field when they could have kicked the game-winning field goal. That's also another example of like something that could have easily backfired, but it went his way. So even in a playoff setting, like some things could go one way or the other. It's just about bounces at this point. And I think that sometimes his aggressive decision-making could go against him.
Yeah, I don't really understand. Okay, I lied. I do understand like kind of the thought process of why he did that. I think the thought was, okay, our defense can't stop a soul. We just want to try and get the ball back and make this a 1-score game. But the way that the NFL is now, and you have to announce when you're doing an onside kick, it just doesn't. The slightest opportunity that you had before you had to announce it to get an onside kick decreases even more when the opposing team is like already able to set up for it and is ready. It just makes those odds of you recovering that so much less. And then on top of that, Matt Collins runs it down to the 3 or wherever 5-yard line, and they score like the next play. So like, in a matter of 25 seconds, the game went from a 10-point game to a 17-point game. And like that, even though it happened so fast and they pretty much sold the whole fourth quarter, the Bills were just rolling on offense, and that's almost an impossible task to try and get back.
Don't make their job any easier. Don't make their job any easier by giving the ball on the 3-yard line. They're going to score.
Yeah, it's almost a guarantee. They have too many options down there when it comes to finding the end zone, and giving them the shortest possible field is never a good situation for you as a defense.
100%. And so that's what I'm hanging my hat on it. I don't know if you're ready to do it yet, but I think that when you look at the other teams in the NFC, like, I don't know. I just don't think the Lions have the bodies on defense to be able to make that deep playoff run that everybody wants them to. I want them to. I'd love to see them win a Super Bowl. I just don't think it's their year this year. The injury luck has gone too far the other way for them. And that's really what it's about at this point. It's not because I don't like them or anything like that. It's just the injury luck.
White clouds blowing out when we max 4-5, not the size, but it kick up highlight of my life, man.